October 24th, 1944, Philippine Sea. If this man hesitates for even a moment, an entire American fleet could vanish in fire.
If this man had stayed silent for 30 more seconds, an entire American fleet might have vanished in fire. Section 1, The Green Sweep in the Dark. October 24, 1944. Philippine Sea, east of Leyte Island. 3:41 hours. The carrier deck above is silent, blacked out except for thin strips of red light. Below, deep inside the steel belly of USS Lexington CV-16, the air is cool and smells faintly of oil and ozone. In the Combat Information Center, a single radar scope glows green. Petty Officer First Class William Bill Harris, U.S. Navy, leans forward in his chair, elbows on knees, eyes fixed on the slow, steady rotation of the sweep line. The soft hum of electronics fills the room, broken only by the occasional murmur of voices and the scratch of grease pencils on plotting boards. This is Harris's world now. No horizon. No stars. No sound of engines or gunfire. Just a circle of light, and whatever appears inside it. The sweep rotates once. Empty. Again. Empty. Then, on the next pass, something flickers at the edge of the scope. Harris straightens instantly. Not static. Not see return. Movement. He waits for the next sweep, heart beginning to pound. The blip appears again clearer now. And then another. And another. His fingers curl tightly against the edge of the console. Contact, he says quietly, leaning toward the officer beside him. Multiple contacts. Bearing 310. The lieutenant steps closer, eyes narrowing at the screen. How many, he asks. Harris tracks the returns as the sweep completes another rotation. The blips are spreading, forming lines, clusters. Organized. Deliberate. Hard to say yet, Harris replies, keeping his voice even. But this isn't weather. Another sweep. More returns. Dozens. The lieutenant doesn't hesitate. Mark them. Range. 100 miles, closing fast. The room changes instantly. What had been routine watch duty becomes something else entirely. Voices sharpen. Chairs scrape. A plotting officer steps forward, pencil poised. Radar in 1944 is still young. Powerful, yes, but imperfect. False echoes are common. Rain squalls can fool even experienced operators. But Harris has been doing this long enough to know the difference. These contacts have speed. Purpose. They are coming straight toward the fleet. Above them, Task Force 38 steams through the darkness. Fast carriers, light carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, hundreds of ships spread across miles of ocean. The main striking force of the U.S. Navy in the Pacific. And tonight, it is exposed. The invasion of Leyte has begun. American troops are ashore in the Philippines for the first time since 1942. General MacArthur has made his dramatic return. Japan understands what this means. Lose the Philippines, and Japan loses access to oil. Lose oil, and the war cannot continue. So the Imperial Japanese Navy has committed everything. Carriers. Battleships. Cruisers. Aircraft. All of it. Somewhere beyond the horizon, Japanese pilots are already airborne, engines pushing toward American ships hidden in the dark. They believe they are approaching unseen. They are wrong. Harris watches the blips grow brighter. Sir, he says, Louder now. Contacts multiplying. Large formation. The lieutenant turns sharply. General quarters, he orders. Notify the bridge. Air group to standby. Moments later, the shrill wail of the general quarters alarm tears through the ship. Klaxons echo down passageways. Red lights flash. Sailors leap from bunks, pulling on helmets and life jackets as they run for their stations. On the flight deck, deck crews sprint into position. Engines cough to life. Fuel lines are dragged into place. Ordnance crews begin loading ammunition by feel under dim lights. All because one man noticed something on a screen. Back in the CIC, Harris keeps talking. Range now 90 miles. Speed, high. Altitude uncertain. The plotting board fills with symbols. Grease pencils dart back and forth as officers calculate headings and intercept points. The air defense officer listens intently, headset pressed tight to his ear. Any chance it's friendly, someone asks. Harris doesn't answer right away. He watches one more sweep. Then another. No, sir, he says finally. This is a coordinated inbound. Multiple groups. There is no panic in his voice. That matters. In combat, tone can decide outcomes as surely as information. A nervous operator spreads doubt. A calm one spreads confidence. The lieutenant nods. Launch the cap, he says. All available fighters. Deep in the night sky, engines roar as F-6F Hellcats are flung off the carrier deck, climbing hard into darkness. Pilots strain to see anything at all, trusting voices from below to guide them. Vector 275, a controller calls. Angels 1-5. Bogies inbound. Radar has turned night into something navigable. Without it, the fleet would be blind, forced to wait until Japanese aircraft were visible, perhaps seconds from attack. But tonight, the warning has come early. And the first test of that warning is only minutes away. Harris watches as friendly and enemy blips begin to converge. He does not know it yet, but in this moment, the difference between surprise and survival has already been decided. Section 2, Fighters into the night. The radar sweep tightens. Range 80 miles, Harris calls out. Enemy formation splitting, 3 main groups. The plotting board now looks crowded, almost chaotic, symbols inching closer with every passing second. The air defense officer leans over the table, finger tracing a line from the enemy contacts to the carrier's projected course. They're coming straight at us, he mutters. On the bridge of USS Lexington, the captain receives the report without theatrics. He has trusted radar before. He trusts it now. Come right, he orders calmly. Increase speed. Launch everything we can. Above decks, the flight deck shudders as another Hellcat tears free into the darkness. The aircraft's engine howl fades almost instantly, swallowed by the night. Lieutenant Commander James Sutherland, call sign Pug, grips the controls of his Hellcat as it claws upward. There is no moon. No horizon. Only blackness and the faint glow of instruments. Vector 310, a calm voice guides him through the headset. Bogies approaching fast. Sutherland doesn't question it. He banks hard. He has learned to trust the unseen. Back in the CIC, Harris's world has narrowed to numbers and motion. Range 65 miles, closing. Sweat beads along his hairline. He wipes it away absently, never breaking eye contact with the scope. He has no view of the ocean, no idea how many men are now awake because of his call. He only knows that the blips are still coming. The first friendly intercept appears on the screen. Two clusters merge. Then, suddenly one vanishes. Splash, Harris reports, voice steady. One enemy contact lost. A few seconds later another. The Hellcats have found them. In the sky, Sutherland opens fire at point-blank range. Tracers streak forward. A Japanese bomber jolts violently, flames licking from its wing root before it tumbles out of formation. Sutherland doesn't watch it fall. He pushes through, already hunting the next shadow. Below, radar confirms what eyes barely can. Multiple enemy contacts breaking formation, Harris says. Some turning away. The Japanese pilots had expected surprise. Instead, they are being intercepted miles from their targets, scattered before they can line up attacks. Still, some get through. A low contact appears fast and skimming close to the sea. Low altitude bogey, Harris snaps. Bearing 180. Speed high. That warning races through the fleet. On USS Santa Fe, anti-aircraft crews swing their guns downward. The water ahead suddenly erupts in tracers. A kamikaze streaks upward through the fire, trailing smoke. And disintegrates in a white flash less than a mile from the ship. The concussion rattles bulkheads but causes no damage. Another life ends in the dark. Another ship survives. The night stretches on like this wave after wave. Radar contact. Interception. Explosion. Silence. Then again. Each time, Harris updates the board. New group detected, bearing 290. Range 50 miles. Multiple altitude levels. His voice never wavers. Inside the CIC, exhaustion threatens to creep in, but adrenaline keeps everyone upright. Coffee goes untouched. Cigarettes burn down to filters in shaking fingers. No one leaves their station. Japanese commanders grow increasingly frustrated. Their aircraft are being chewed apart long before reaching the carriers. Radar-directed fighters seem to materialize out of nowhere. Anti-aircraft fire is waiting, aimed, prepared. What they don't know is that American radar operators across the task force are working in quiet coordination, overlapping coverage, handing off targets seamlessly from ship to ship. The fleet is not reacting blindly. It is anticipating. Near dawn, the final wave appears smaller, disorganized. Contacts thinning, Harris reports. Range increasing. The lieutenant finally allows himself a breath. As the eastern horizon lightens, the radar scope clears. The sweep rotates, revealing nothing but empty sea. "Sir," Harris says softly. No inbound aircraft detected. For the first time in hours, the room relaxes. Outside, the sun rises over an American fleet still afloat. Aircraft are recovered. Damage control teams inspect shrapnel scars. Smoke drifts lazily above the water where enemy planes fell. The Japanese have failed to achieve surprise. And the reason lies not in the sky but in a dark room below decks, where one man saw first and spoke calmly. But the battle is far from over. To the west, something far more dangerous is moving through the darkness, something radar will soon reveal again. Section 3, The Sea Reveals Its Giants. October 25, 1944. Just after dawn. Philippine Sea. The sun lifts slowly over the horizon, revealing a battlefield that seems impossibly vast. Smoke hangs low over the water. Scattered debris glints in the early light. The sea itself looks calm, almost indifferent to the violence it has just witnessed. Inside the Combat Information Center, Harris remains at his station. Radar does not rest when daylight comes. The green sweep continues its endless rotation, probing far beyond what the human eye can see. And now, something new begins to appear. Not fast. Not fleeting. Heavy. Solid. Harris leans forward again. Surface contact, he says. Large returns, bearing 260. The lieutenant steps closer. How large? Harris watches the scope as the returns sharpen. Very large, sir, he answers. Multiple contacts. Slow speed. Tight formation. No one speaks for a moment. Everyone in the room understands what that means. Battleships. Far to the west, Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita's center force has emerged from the San Bernardino Strait. Through darkness and rain squalls, Kurita has brought the most powerful surface fleet Japan has left: battleships Yamato, Nagato, Kongo, heavy cruisers, destroyers straight toward the American invasion forces. Radar has found them. But finding them does not mean stopping them. On the plotting board, Harris's surface contacts creep forward slowly, relentlessly. The scale is wrong. The symbols representing Kurita's ships dwarf the tiny icons marking American escort carriers and destroyers guarding the landing forces off Samar. This is not how the battle was supposed to unfold. Task Force 38's fast carriers Halsey's main striking arm are far to the north, chasing Japanese decoy carriers. Between Kurita's guns and the vulnerable invasion fleet stand only lightly armed ships, escort carriers designed to support troops, not fight battleships. Harris listens as radio traffic intensifies. Enemy surface ships firing. Escort carrier taking hits. Request immediate air support. The words hit harder than any alarm. On the CIC plot, American aircraft icons surge toward the surface contacts: torpedo bombers, dive bombers, fighters launching without full coordination, without perfect information. Pilots are attacking on instinct, guided by bearings and radar fixes rather than visual identification. Smoke, cloud cover, and confusion obscure everything. Radar becomes the only reliable picture of the fight. Aboard escort carrier USS Gambier Bay, sailors watch towering water plumes rise as Japanese battleships fire from over the horizon. Shells land with terrifying precision. The ship shudders under near misses. Yet still, American aircraft keep coming. Radar-guided vectors bring them in wave after wave. Not enough to destroy Kurita's fleet, but enough to confuse it. Enough to make it seem larger than it is. Enough to buy time. Harris tracks it all. Enemy formation turning slightly south, surface contacts slowing. Multiple air attacks underway. Each report is relayed up the chain, passed from ship to ship, turning individual acts of resistance into coordinated pressure. Kurita's own radar, primitive and unreliable, cannot give him the same clarity. His lookouts see aircraft everywhere. His gunners fire at shadows. His commanders struggle to understand what they are facing. Is this the full American Third Fleet or just fragments? Radar has tilted perception itself. On the plotting board, Harris notices something unexpected. The enemy icons stop advancing. They hesitate. Then slowly they begin to turn. Sir, Harris says carefully. Surface contacts altering course. Bearing shifting west. The lieutenant stares. Confirm. Harris watches another sweep. Confirmed. Enemy force withdrawing. For a moment, no one speaks. Then the lieutenant exhales sharply. They're turning back, he says, disbelief in his voice. Kurita orders retreat. Not because his fleet has been destroyed but because radar-guided resistance has convinced him he is outmatched. The largest surface fleet Japan ever assembled turns away from lightly armed American ships it could have crushed because it cannot see clearly what it is fighting. Radar has magnified American strength, turning fragments into a phantom armada. In the CIC, Harris finally allows his shoulders to sag. The immediate danger is passing. Outside, escort carriers limp but remain afloat. Destroyers smoke but still steam. The invasion fleet survives. Leyte Gulf is still raging elsewhere. But here, in this sector of sea, radar has done something extraordinary. It has shaped decision. It has turned uncertainty into caution. And caution into retreat. Harris doesn't think about that yet. He simply logs the change, updates the board, and prepares for whatever comes next. Because until the screen is empty, the battle is not over. Section 4, When the blips begin to fade. October 25, 1944. Late morning. Philippine Sea. The radar scope is quieter now. Not empty but calmer. The frantic convergence of symbols has slowed into something more deliberate, more readable. Harris rubs his eyes with the back of his hand, then leans forward again, forcing focus. Fatigue is dangerous. Mistakes happen when you think the worst is over. Surface contacts continuing west, he reports. Range increasing. The lieutenant nods, already relaying the update. Around them, the Combat Information Center settles into a strange half-state, no longer braced for immediate disaster, but far from relaxed. No one trusts the silence yet. Outside, the sea tells a brutal story. Aircraft wreckage bobs gently in the swell. Oil slicks spread into rainbow patterns. A destroyer steams past with a list, her deck scorched and pocked by shrapnel. But the carriers are still there. That is what matters. Across the fleet, radar operators continue to scan relentlessly. Some have been on watch for more than 12 hours. Their eyes ache. Their heads throb. But the sweep does not stop, and neither do they. Radar is not heroic in the way guns are. It does not roar. It does not flash. It does not kill. It warns. And warnings must be constant. Harris listens as reports come in from other ships. Enemy air contacts breaking off. No additional surface forces detected. Cap returning to base. Each message tightens the sense that something irreversible has just happened. Japan has thrown everything into the battle. And it has failed. In the sky, American pilots circle cautiously, scanning for stragglers. Many are low on fuel. Some land with bullet holes in their wings or hydraulic fluid leaking from shot-up lines. But they land. The flight deck crews catch them one by one, hauling aircraft forward, clearing space, moving with exhausted efficiency. The carrier lives. Back in the CIC, Harris finally allows himself to lean back in his chair. Only slightly. Just enough to ease the strain in his spine. He takes a sip of cold coffee and grimaces. He does not feel triumphant. He feels hollow. The kind of hollow that comes when adrenaline drains away and leaves only the awareness of how close everything came to collapsing. The lieutenant steps closer. "Good work tonight," he says quietly. Harris nods but says nothing. What could he say? That he did his job, that he trusted his training, that he spoke up when something felt wrong? None of it sounds significant enough. And yet, it was. Hours later, as the fleet regroups, official tallies begin to circulate. Japanese losses are staggering: 4 carriers sunk, 3 battleships lost, 10 cruisers destroyed, countless aircraft gone. The Imperial Japanese Navy has been broken. It will never again challenge American sea control in a decisive battle. But no one in the CIC celebrates. They think instead of the messages they heard earlier, voices breaking over the radio, ships calling for help, pilots never returning. Victory is never clean. Radar reports continue into the afternoon, confirming what commanders already suspect. The enemy is retreating everywhere. Leyte Gulf belongs to the United States. That evening, Harris is finally relieved. He steps out onto the deck, squinting as the sun dips toward the horizon. The air smells of smoke and salt. The sea is calm again, deceptively so. He leans against the railing, watching the water slide past. Somewhere beneath it lie aircraft, ships, and men who will never come home. He does not think of himself as having saved anyone. But he knows this: if the warning had come later, if the words had been hesitant, if the first blips had been ignored, this deck might not exist. Radar will not get a headline. No medal citation will describe a calm voice in a dark room. But the fleet sails on. And sometimes, survival is the greatest proof of victory there is. Section 5, The Quiet After the Storm. October 26, 1944. Philippine Sea. Just before dawn. The night is calm again. Too calm. A thin breeze moves across the deck of USS Lexington, carrying the faint smell of burned fuel and cordite that still lingers in the air. The ship's wake glows softly with phosphorescence as she cuts through the dark water, steaming steadily east. Below decks, in the Combat Information Center, the radar scope turns. Once. Twice. Empty. Petty Officer Bill Harris is back on watch. War does not care that the battle is over. It demands the same vigilance, the same discipline, the same attention to detail as before. Harris sits forward, posture straight, eyes fixed on the green glow. Fatigue presses hard now, heavier than fear ever was. But he stays alert. Because this war has taught him one thing above all else: disaster rarely announces itself loudly. The reports coming in are routine now. No enemy air. No surface contacts. Friendly ships maneuvering into new formations. The invasion fleet is secure. Leyte holds. In the quiet moments, Harris's mind drifts back over the last 48 hours: the sudden appearance of blips in the dark, the rush of voices, the roar of engines overhead. He remembers the feeling in his chest when he first realized what he was seeing. That moment of choice. Ignore it, or speak. Hesitate, or act. Above decks, sailors begin the work of recovery and repair. Damaged aircraft are pushed aside. Shrapnel holes are patched. Names are written onto lists that will be sent home. Some men will not return to these decks. Others will carry what they've seen for the rest of their lives. The sea remains silent about all of it. Admirals will later argue over decisions made at Leyte Gulf. Historians will debate Halsey's choices, Kurita's retreat, and which moments mattered most. But beneath all that analysis lies a simpler truth. Modern war had crossed a threshold. At Leyte Gulf, victory did not belong solely to the biggest guns or the bravest charge. It belonged to those who could see first, decide first, and act before the enemy even knew they were detected. Radar had done more than warn. It had reshaped the battlefield. Harris is relieved shortly after sunrise. He removes his headset, carefully coils the cord, and hands the console over to the next operator. There is no ceremony. No handshake. Just a nod. He climbs the ladder toward the deck, emerging into the daylight. The sea stretches endlessly in every direction. Carriers and escorts steam in disciplined lines, flags snapping in the breeze. From a distance, the fleet looks untouched. Invincible. Harris knows better. He leans on the railing for a moment, eyes following the slow rise and fall of the waves. Somewhere out there, the wreckage of Japan's last great naval gamble lies scattered across the ocean floor. The war is not over yet. But its outcome is no longer in doubt. Years from now, few will remember the names of radar operators. Their stories will not be told in headlines or speeches. They will not be painted charging forward or standing triumphant on smoking decks. They will be remembered only in what did not happen. The carriers that did not sink. The sailors who went home. The fleet that survived the night. All because, in a dark room beneath layers of steel, one calm voice chose to speak when the green glow changed. And sometimes, that is how history turns. Sometimes history turns not on fire and steel, but on awareness and calm. If you want to hear more stories where a single moment changed the course of war, like the video, leave a comment, and follow the channel.